The unseen witness. The arrival. The space station Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between star systems, a massive structure of metal and light that served as neutral ground for galactic diplomacy. Ambassador David Torres stepped off the human transport shuttle, his worn leather briefcase in hand and his gray suit looking modest compared to the elaborate garments of the alien delegates moving through the docking bay. Torres was not what most aliens expected when they thought of human representatives. He was middle-aged with silver streaks in his dark hair and worry lines around his eyes that spoke of difficult decisions. He had spent 20 years in the diplomatic corps, but this was his first assignment to a major galactic summit. Earth's government had chosen him carefully for this moment. The Galactic Trade Summit happened once every 5 years, bringing together representatives from hundreds of species to discuss commerce, territorial boundaries, and peaceful cooperation. The main conference hall was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and environmental needs. Some delegates floated in zero-gravity chambers while others sat in pools of liquid methane. The diversity was beautiful and overwhelming. Torres found his assigned seat in a section reserved for newly contacted species. The human delegation consisted of only 3 people: himself, his assistant Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and a security officer named Lieutenant Marcus Reed. They looked impossibly small compared to the massive delegations from established powers like the Krillian Empire. The dominant force. The Krillian Empire controlled nearly 8,000 star systems across 2 galactic arms. Their representatives arrived with great ceremony, led by High Commander Zarthok, a being that stood 3 meters tall with scaled purple skin and 6 arms ending in sharp claws. His species had evolved as apex predators, and they brought that mentality to galactic politics. Zarthok's voice boomed through the translation systems as he took the central podium. Honored delegates, the Krillian Empire brings news of prosperity and expansion. We have successfully secured additional territories for peaceful development and resource extraction. Torres listened carefully, his face neutral as he took notes on an old-fashioned tablet. Dr. Mitchell sat beside him, monitoring the translation feeds and cross-referencing data with Earth's intelligence network. In the past solar cycle, Zarthok continued, our survey fleets have cleared numerous hazards from shipping lanes and identified several new resource zones ready for exploitation. We have removed dangerous debris, eliminated navigational obstacles, and made space safer for all law-abiding civilizations. Applause came from several delegations, particularly those who depended on Krillian trade routes. Torres did not applaud. He was studying the star map that appeared behind Zarthok, showing the locations of recent Krillian operations. The recognition. Dr. Mitchell leaned close to Torres and whispered, Ambassador, look at coordinates Sector 447 Alpha. That's the Kepler belt where we sent the research mission. Torres felt his chest tighten. 6 months ago, Earth had lost contact with the research vessel Horizon's Dawn. The ship carried 200 scientists studying exotic stellar phenomena in a remote region of space. Search and rescue operations had found only scattered debris. No survivors. No explanation for what happened. On the display behind Zarthok, that exact region was marked with a Krillian military symbol indicating a completed clearance operation. Torres kept his expression carefully neutral, but his mind was racing. He watched as Zarthok activated a video presentation showing Krillian warships conducting operations in various systems. The footage showed massive vessels firing energy weapons at asteroids, space stations, and other objects floating in the void. Then Torres saw it. A brief clip, barely 5 seconds long, showing a Krillian destroyer firing on what was labeled as unidentified space debris. But Torres recognized the distinctive design of Earth's research vessels. The elongated hull, the solar panel arrays, the bright blue identification markings that every human ship carried. Horizon's Dawn, Dr. Mitchell breathed beside him, confirming what Torres had seen. The investigation. After the presentation ended, delegates broke into smaller discussion groups. Torres excused himself from his assigned networking session and moved to a quiet observation deck overlooking the station's massive central sphere. Lieutenant Reed followed at a discreet distance, always watching for threats. Torres activated his secure communication device, establishing a quantum-encrypted link to Earth. The face of Admiral Catherine Brooks appeared on his screen. She was the head of Earth's Space Defense Command and one of the few people who knew the full extent of humanity's capabilities. Admiral, Torres said quietly, I need you to send me everything we have on the Horizon's Dawn incident. Every piece of wreckage, every sensor reading, every communication fragment. Brooks nodded. We've been monitoring the summit broadcast. We saw the footage. David, you need to understand what you're dealing with. The Krillians have been the dominant military power in this region for 3,000 years. They don't negotiate with species they consider inferior. They killed 200 of our people, Torres replied, his voice hard. Scientists, researchers. Dr. Emily Park was on that ship. She was 3 months from retiring. Commander James Liu had just become a father. They weren't soldiers, Catherine. They were civilians conducting peaceful research. I know, Brooks said. And I'm sending you authorization to activate Protocol Omega. Everything we've kept hidden for 30 years is now at your disposal. Torres took a deep breath. Protocol Omega was Earth's deepest secret, the insurance policy they had developed since first detecting signs of galactic civilization. Humanity had spent 3 decades building a network of observation posts, developing stealth technology, and gathering intelligence about their cosmic neighbors before making formal contact. The whole truth? Torres asked. The whole truth, Brooks confirmed. Show them who we really are. The evidence. Over the next 2 days, Torres attended summit sessions while Dr. Mitchell worked behind the scenes, analyzing data and building a case. The evidence was damning. The Krillian operation logs showed they had detected the Horizon's Dawn, classified it as primitive automated equipment, and destroyed it without attempting communication or scanning for life signs. The black box from Horizon's Dawn had been recovered by one of Earth's secret reconnaissance drones. Torres listened to the final recording, hearing the voices of people he had known. Unknown vessels approaching, Captain Rodriguez's voice said. Attempting to establish communication on all standard frequencies. They're not responding. Energy signatures indicate weapons charging. This is Captain Maria Rodriguez of Earth Research Vessel Horizon's Dawn requesting immediate assistance. They're firing. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. We have casualties. Initiating evacuation protocols. The recording ended in static and screaming. Torres played that recording dozens of times, memorizing every word, every sound. 200 people had died because an alien commander decided their ship looked primitive and therefore worthless. But the Krillians had made a critical mistake. They had destroyed the Horizon's Dawn in view of one of Earth's hidden observation satellites. Humanity had footage of the entire attack from multiple angles, along with complete sensor data showing that the research vessel was clearly inhabited, broadcasting standard peaceful contact protocols, and posed no threat to anyone. The private meeting. On the 3rd day of the summit, Torres requested a private audience with High Commander Zarthok. The request was unusual but not unprecedented. New species often sought guidance from established powers. They met in a neutral conference room with translucent walls overlooking the stars. Zarthok arrived with 2 advisors, clearly expecting a simple diplomatic courtesy call from a primitive species seeking favor. Ambassador Torres, Zarthok said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into human language. How may the Krillian Empire assist Earth in understanding galactic civilization? Torres opened his briefcase and removed a data pad. High Commander, I need to discuss your recent operations in Sector 447 Alpha. Specifically, the incident you classified as removing navigational hazards. Zarthok's scaled face showed no emotion. We conduct thousands of such operations annually. Space is vast and often cluttered with debris from failed civilizations or natural disasters. We provide a valuable service to galactic commerce. I'm sure you do, Torres replied calmly. However, one of those hazards you removed was not debris. It was a human research vessel called Horizon's Dawn, carrying 200 scientists. The room fell silent. Zarthok's 6 arms shifted slightly, a gesture Torres had learned indicated surprise or concern in Krillian body language. That is impossible, Zarthok said. Our sensors would have detected life signs. Our protocols require... Your protocols, Torres interrupted, clearly failed. I have evidence that proves beyond any doubt that your forces destroyed an inhabited civilian vessel conducting peaceful research. He activated the data pad, projecting holographic displays into the air between them. The footage showed the Horizon's Dawn from multiple angles, the Krillian destroyer approaching, and the moment of attack. Audio files played the desperate communications from Captain Rodriguez. This must be some mistake, one of Zarthok's advisors said. Perhaps edited footage or... The metadata is all authenticated, Torres said. Time stamps, quantum signatures, gravitational lens distortion patterns. This footage is genuine and you know it. Zarthok studied the evidence for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost some of its commanding authority. This is regrettable. An unfortunate accident. The Empire is willing to discuss compensation for this error. Compensation? Torres felt his carefully controlled anger rising. You murdered 200 innocent people and you want to offer compensation? What else would you expect? Zarthok asked, genuinely confused. Accidents occur in space. Resources are exchanged to settle disputes. This is how civilization functions. Torres stood up, gathering his materials. High Commander, I want you to understand something very clearly. Humanity did not come to this summit seeking membership in your empire or protection from your military. We came to observe and learn about our neighbors before deciding how to proceed. And what have you learned? Zarthok asked. That the most powerful civilization in this region destroys others without bothering to check if they're alive first, Torres replied. I'll be making a formal presentation to the full summit assembly tomorrow. I suggest you prepare your legal defense. As Torres walked toward the door, Zarthok called after him. Ambassador, you are making a dangerous enemy. The Krillian Empire does not tolerate threats from primitive species. Torres turned back and for the first time since arriving at the summit he smiled. It was not a friendly expression. High Commander, he said quietly, you have no idea what humanity is capable of. But tomorrow the entire galaxy will find out. He touched a small device on his wrist and the lights in the room flickered briefly. Zarthok's advisors immediately checked their security systems, but found nothing wrong. What they didn't know was that Torres had just activated a signal that would bring Earth's hidden observation network online. Across dozens of star systems, stealth satellites and monitoring stations that had been operating in complete silence for decades suddenly began transmitting. The Krillian Empire was about to discover that the primitive species they had casually attacked was neither primitive nor weak. They had simply been patient, watching and waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. That moment had arrived. The truth revealed. The assembly. The main conference hall of Nexus Prime was completely full for the first time in the summit's history. Word had spread through unofficial channels that the human delegation was planning something unprecedented. Delegates who had been scheduled to depart early stayed to watch. Species that rarely attended general sessions sent representatives. Ambassador David Torres walked to the central speaking platform with the same calm demeanor he had maintained throughout the summit. Dr. Mitchell and Lieutenant Reed remained in the human section, monitoring systems and security. Torres carried no notes, no data pads, nothing except a small silver device that he placed carefully on the podium. High Commander Zarthok sat in the elevated Krillian section, surrounded by military advisors and legal experts. He had spent the previous night reviewing Earth's formal complaint and preparing his defense. The consensus among his staff was clear: a new species seeking attention through dramatic accusations. The matter would be resolved through standard compensation protocols. Chancellor Vexenar, the neutral arbiter of the summit, called the session to order. We recognize Ambassador David Torres of Earth, who has requested emergency session time to address the assembly on a matter of galactic law. Torres began speaking in a clear, steady voice that carried throughout the vast chamber. Honored delegates, 6 months ago, humanity lost contact with a research vessel called Horizon's Dawn. This ship carried 200 scientists conducting peaceful exploration in unclaimed space. For months we searched for answers. Yesterday, I discovered what happened to them. The display behind Torres activated, showing the Horizon's Dawn in orbit around a distant star. The ship gleamed in the starlight, its blue identification markings clearly visible. This vessel was not military. It carried no weapons. Its crew consisted of astrophysicists, biologists, engineers and support staff. Their mission was to study unusual stellar phenomena and search for planets suitable for future colonization. The display changed to show personnel files scrolling past. Faces, names and brief biographies of the crew. Dr. Emily Park, who had spent 40 years studying neutron stars. Commander Liu, who had twin daughters back on Earth. Young interns fresh from university. Families. People with dreams and futures. The accusation. On March 15th by Earth's calendar, Torres continued, the Horizon's Dawn was approached by a Krillian military destroyer. The crew immediately began broadcasting peaceful contact protocols on all standard frequencies. They followed every known diplomatic procedure for first contact situations. The display now showed communications logs from the Horizon's Dawn, time-stamped and authenticated. Desperate messages sent in dozens of languages and formats, all saying the same thing. We are peaceful, we mean no harm, please respond. The Krillian vessel never responded, Torres said. Instead, they classified the Horizon's Dawn as navigational debris and opened fire. The holographic display showed the attack from multiple angles. Footage that Zarthok recognized immediately as impossible. These were views from locations where no human ships had been reported. Energy beams striking the research vessel. Hull sections exploding. Escape pods launching desperately into space, only to be targeted and destroyed by secondary weapons fire. Gasps and shocked sounds came from delegates throughout the chamber. Even species accustomed to war looked disturbed by the casual efficiency of the slaughter. Torres activated an audio file. The voice of Captain Rodriguez filled the chamber, her final desperate message playing for everyone to hear. The sounds of her ship dying, her crew screaming, her own voice breaking as she realized they would not escape. When the audio ended, the chamber remained silent for several long seconds. 200 souls, Torres said quietly. Murdered because a Krillian commander couldn't be bothered to check if they were alive before opening fire. Zarthok rose from his seat, his 6 arms gesturing for attention. This is a tragic accident, yes. But it was an honest mistake. Our sensors indicated. Your sensors functioned perfectly, Torres interrupted. He activated another display, showing detailed technical data. These are the scan results from your destroyer, pulled directly from your own military network. Your sensors clearly detected life signs, power systems, and active communications. Your targeting computer logged all of this information before weapons were fired. The technical readouts were damning. They showed that the Krillian ship had detected everything about the Horizon's dawn, classified it as a low-technology vessel from an unknown species, and determined it was not worth the time needed for proper first contact protocols. Your commander made a choice, Torres said. He decided that a species using primitive technology was not important enough to deserve basic consideration. He destroyed a civilian vessel and filed a report classifying it as debris removal. The network revealed. Zarthok's legal advisor stood up. Even assuming this evidence is genuine, where did a newly contacted species obtain surveillance footage from deep space? Where did you get access to classified Krillian military data? This reeks of espionage and fabrication. Torres smiled. An excellent question. Let me answer it. He touched the silver device on the podium. The massive display behind him changed dramatically, showing a star map of the entire region. Thousands of tiny points of light appeared across the map, each one pulsing with a soft blue glow. What you are seeing, Torres explained, is the Earth Intelligence Network. Each point represents a monitoring station, satellite, or observation post that humanity has deployed over the past 30 years. We have been watching all of you since before we made official contact. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Delegates stood up, shouting questions and objections. Security systems throughout Nexus Prime went on alert as governments checked their own security protocols. 30 years ago, Torres continued over the noise, humanity detected radio signals from the Krillian Empire. We realized we were not alone in the universe. And we made a choice. We decided to learn about our galactic neighbors before introducing ourselves. The display zoomed in on various systems, showing the extent of human observation capabilities. Satellites hidden in asteroid fields. Monitoring posts disguised as space debris. Even underwater installations on several ocean worlds. We have been watching your wars, your trade disputes, your political intrigue, Torres said. We studied your cultures, learned your languages, and built comprehensive intelligence on every major civilization in this region. And we did it all without you ever knowing we existed. A delegate from the Saurian collective stood up. This is a massive violation of sovereignty. You spied on us for decades. Yes, Torres admitted calmly. Just as many of you would have done in our position. The difference is that we never attacked anyone. We never stole resources. We simply watched and learned. We were preparing for this day, when we would finally make formal contact. Chancellor Vexenaire struggled to maintain order. Ambassador Torres, this revelation will have serious diplomatic consequences. But it does not change the fact that the Krillian Empire's actions may have been technically legal under current laws regarding uncontacted species. Uncontacted. Torres's voice rose for the first time, showing real anger. We broadcast our presence across 100 frequencies. We followed every standard first contact protocol. The only reason we were treated as debris is because the Krillian Empire assumes any technology less advanced than theirs is worthless. The pattern emerges. Torres activated another display. But here's what troubles me most. The Horizon's dawn was not the first time this happened. The screen showed a long list of incidents. Dates, locations, and brief descriptions scrolling past. In the past 20 years, Krillian forces have destroyed 17 different vessels or installations belonging to pre-spaceflight or early spaceflight civilizations. Each time, they classified the destruction as clearing navigational hazards or removing space debris. He highlighted specific incidents. The Valachii colony ship, destroyed because it was moving too slowly through a Krillian shipping lane. 3,000 colonists killed. The Doran research outpost, vaporized because it was built on an asteroid the Krillians wanted to mine. 500 scientists dead. The Quillian evacuation fleet, eliminated because they fled into space controlled by the Empire without permission. 7,000 refugees murdered. With each incident Torres described, more delegates began checking their own records. Species that had been told their lost ships were destroyed by pirates or natural disasters now saw a different pattern emerging. The Krillian Empire, Torres said, has been systematically eliminating smaller civilizations for decades. Not through formal conquest, but through casual violence justified by bureaucratic language. They kill thousands of beings and file reports calling it routine cleanup operations. Zarthok finally rose to his full imposing height. These accusations are outrageous. The Empire has maintained order in this region for millennia. We have protected countless species from chaos and barbarism. Protected them? Torres asked. Or controlled them through fear? Let me show you something else. The display changed again, this time showing detailed economic data. In the past century, 47 species have joined the Krillian Empire as protectorate members. Of those, 39 did so immediately after experiencing what were officially classified as pirate attacks or natural disasters. Attacks that conveniently demonstrated they needed imperial protection. The data painted a clear picture. The Krillian Empire would identify vulnerable species, manufacture crises to demonstrate the dangers of independence, and then offer protection in exchange for resources and political control. You're describing a protection racket, the Saurian delegate said, understanding dawning in his voice. Exactly, Torres confirmed. The Empire creates the very dangers they claim to protect against. The coalition forms. Around the chamber, delegates were having urgent conversations with their advisors. Species that had suffered mysterious losses were comparing notes. Governments were pulling military records and finding coincidences that now looked like patterns. The representative from the Valachii people stood up, her voice shaking with emotion. Ambassador Torres, you mentioned our colony ship. We were told it hit a gravitic anomaly. Are you saying the Krillians destroyed it deliberately? Torres pulled up the detailed records. Your ship was destroyed by Krillian plasma cannons. The entire attack was recorded by their own gun cameras. It was filed as removing a traffic obstruction. The Valachii delegate sat down heavily, absorbing the truth about what had happened to her people 3 generations ago. One by one, other species began standing up and sharing similar stories. The Doran, the Quillians, the Hyphex, the Travian Union, all of them had lost ships or stations under mysterious circumstances. All of them had been told it was accidents or pirates. All of them now saw the truth. Zarthok and his advisors huddled together, clearly trying to develop a response strategy. But the situation was spiraling out of their control. The Empire's reputation, carefully built over centuries, was collapsing in real time. The demand. So what do you want, human? Zarthok demanded. Revenge? Or to replace the Empire as the dominant power? Torres shook his head. None of those things. What humanity wants is justice and accountability. He outlined his demands clearly. First, formal acknowledgement from the Krillian Empire that they destroyed the Horizon's Dawn and the other vessels we've documented. Second, substantial reparations to the families of all victims. Third, new protocols requiring all galactic powers to attempt communication before using force against unidentified vessels. And if we refuse? Zarthok asked. Torres's expression became hard. Then humanity will be forced to take other measures. You see, our observation network didn't just watch you. It also identified every strategic weakness in your military infrastructure. The display changed one final time, showing Krillian military installations throughout their territory. Each one was marked with detailed vulnerability assessments, weak points in shields, gaps in sensor coverage, predictable patrol patterns. We know where your shipyards are, Torres said quietly. We know where your admirals live. We know which supply lines keep your empire functioning. We have spent 30 years learning how to defeat you if it ever became necessary. The threat hung in the air like poison. Zarthok realized with growing horror that his empire had been completely infiltrated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. But, Torres continued, his voice softening slightly, we don't want war. We want a better galactic civilization. One where species are judged by their potential, not their current technology level. One where casual genocide is not accepted as routine administration. Chancellor Vexenaire spoke carefully. Ambassador Torres, you have presented compelling evidence of serious crimes. However, restructuring galactic law cannot happen in a single session. I understand, Torres replied. That's why humanity is prepared to stay engaged in this process for as long as necessary. We're also prepared to offer an alternative. He looked around the chamber at the many smaller species who had been victimized by larger powers. Earth proposes a new alliance. A coalition of civilizations committed to mutual protection and ethical treatment of all sentient beings. We have the intelligence network, the technology, and the determination to ensure no one else suffers what the Horizon's Dawn experienced. The proposal was revolutionary. For thousands of years, galactic politics had been dominated by large empires controlling smaller species through strength. Torres was offering a different model, collective security based on shared values rather than military might. The Valacii delegates stood up again. The Valacii people support this proposal. We have suffered enough under the current system. One by one, other delegates rose to express support. The Doran, the Quillians, dozens of smaller species that had lived in fear of larger neighbors. They saw in humanity's proposal a chance for real change. The new order. Zarthok watched his political dominance crumbling. The Krillian Empire faced a choice: accept accountability and adapt to new norms, or face isolation and possible conflict with a coalition of species backed by Earth's hidden capabilities. The Empire, Zarthok said finally, each word clearly painful, acknowledges errors in our operational protocols. We are prepared to discuss terms for reparations and reforms. It was not a full admission of guilt, but it was a beginning. Torres nodded, accepting the partial victory. Then let's begin those discussions. But understand, High Commander, the galaxy is watching. Everything said here today has been broadcast to millions of worlds. You cannot hide behind classified reports anymore. As the session adjourned, delegates gathered in small groups discussing the implications of what they had witnessed. The balance of galactic power had shifted fundamentally in a single day. Humanity had gone from being seen as a primitive newcomer to being recognized as a sophisticated intelligence power with the capability to challenge established empires. Dr. Mitchell approached Torres as he gathered his materials. That was incredibly risky, she said quietly. Revealing our entire network like that. It was necessary, Torres replied. We couldn't ask for justice while hiding in the shadows. Besides, what we showed them is only about 40% of our actual capabilities. We still have plenty of secrets. Lieutenant Reed smiled slightly. So when do we tell them about the fleet? One revelation at a time, Marcus, Torres said. Let them adjust to this truth first. As Earth's delegation prepared to leave the chamber, Torres looked back at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. For 30 years, humanity had watched from the shadows, learning and preparing. The death of the Horizon's Dawn had been a tragedy that forced them into the light earlier than planned. But perhaps that was for the better. The galaxy needed to change. Species could no longer be casually destroyed because they seemed primitive or inconvenient. And if it took humanity's emergence to force that change, then the crew of the Horizon's Dawn had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had given birth to a new era of galactic civilization. One where justice mattered more than raw military power, where species were judged by their character rather than their technology, and where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Ambassador David Torres had come to Nexus Prime seeking answers about lost colleagues. He was leaving having fundamentally changed the course of galactic history. The Empire had indeed fallen silent when humanity revealed the truth. You struck first. And that first strike had awakened a species that would ensure it was also the last.